10 years ago from right now in the Toronto market, the average sale price was $522,000. And the average price today it's just under 1.2. So we have doubled.
The average price in Surrey combined was $593,000. And coincidentally, that is the month that I bought my home. Even after, and I'm going to use average price, which went down $100,000 just last month. The average price in Surrey detached is 1.712. Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Let's do this, Surrey Steve. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Tom Storey Show, your weekly real estate roundup podcast that comes out every single Sunday. I hope you are having an amazing day today. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to smash that like button. Also, Steve, apparently only 35% of people that show up every single week are subscribed. This is troubling to me. So can we get that?
We have 50? Like a 20,000 view video and only like under 3,000 subscribers. Please explain to me how this works. Come on, hit the subscribe button.
If you have 4 hours, I'll explain the YouTube algorithm if you want me to. I'll do it. I'll get in depth here.
I will also say that I think you should hit the subscribe button because I'm getting better. I think I only interrupted 3 times last week. And I did not press the mute button to cough once. So I'm getting better at that.
By the way, a few episodes ago, you can hear me coughing. I swear I clicked the mute button. So I'm going to say this is your fault, Steve, in the fact that in the editing, you use my audio file without the mute. Yeah, see, it works for you.
I did.
But I clicked the mute button, but it didn't show up in the episode. You could hear my coughs. That's your fault.
I disagree because I edited out a bunch of those coughs, but I didn't get them all.
I was coughing a lot. I'm better now. Also, if you're listening on audio, well, I hope you're having a great day, and I appreciate you listening to this podcast, and I hope you're enjoying it for whatever you're up to in your life. Steve, the summer's over. What the hell, man? How was the summer?
Is the Canadian real estate market.
And so is the market. So summer's over. How was your summer? Was it what you thought? Did you have fun? I know you took a little bit of time off. Was it what you expected?
I toured again this great province of ours, driving all over. Let me give you my rundown. Merritt, just as dirty as ever. Don't know if you've ever been there. Just as dirty as ever. Kelowna, little bit more meth there than before.
You have a little. Say one nice thing about each place as well, please.
Okay, sorry. Merritt, great teen burger at A&W. It was great. Downtown Kelowna was unreal with some of the issues. Like I don't know. I don't get it. Some of the beaches, though, again, still the nicest beaches. I understand why people live in some of the kind of outskirts, but the downtown is rough. Outside, the fires were terrible. Between Merritt and Kamloops, man, the whole side of the mountain was on fire. It was nuts. I've never seen anything like it.
When you were there?
Crazy. When we drove by, yeah, and they were water bombers and the whole bit. That was something else. One of the nicest drives I've ever taken in BC was between somewhere called Cache Creek, which is a tiny little town, nice little place, and Kamloops. So I've never done that road before. It was beautiful. Man, there's a lot of land out there. And then we went up to 100 Mile House, which has not changed in 20 years since I used to go up there and do stuff for work in my old job. And then we went to a little place, huge lake called Canham Lake, and sat there for a week. And it was dirty, but fun. Like the kids were wild animals for a week. So that was good. I was just sitting there looking. I was like, there's so much land up here. You guys are worried about like forest fires. How about we start going 1980s and clear cutting half of this stuff so it can't burn down? We'll use the wood, build some more houses, and let's get going. There's so much land. I'm not worried about the trees not being able to survive up there. Like, it's a renewable resource. Just takes 100 years, but let's do this. There's so much land up there.
Don't worry, everybody. You might not be able to breathe anymore, but we'll get you a house. Oxygen's gone. but we'll get you the house. Don't worry. We're going to be okay.
The world is greening. Carbon dioxide actually makes the world green. Did you know that? It doesn't make the world as dry. It actually is a good thing. It actually reverses this whole thing. Don't get me started on my conspiracy theories about global warming and everything else going on. But here's one thing I noticed. So I went to 100 Mile House, which is 5 hours north of the border.
Okay.
So basically border, straight north, 5 hours. It's another 3 hours to Prince George, BC.
Mm-hmm.
Prince George is the exact middle of British Columbia. So it's north to south in British Columbia, if you could drive straight, 16 hours.
Is that what you did?
No, we only went up to 100 Mile, which is 5 hours.
Okay, gotcha.
So 5 hours north, like if you were to drive straight north, it's 5 hours. So including Teen Burger stops in Merritt and different spots.
Still on your diet?
Oh, dude, it was bad. It was so bad. I'm doing better now, though. I'm getting back.
All right.
But there's just so much. There's so much land. Nobody wants to live there. Why does no one want to put anything?
I'll tell you why.
In these areas.
I'll tell you why.
Tell me.
Because there's no jobs. Is the number one reason why. Period. Like, that's why. There's no jobs, so that even if you were an investor, you wouldn't buy to build because you can't rent to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe vacation rental stuff, right? Could you easily drive to a corner store or a pharmacy? Again, I don't know these places.
I was amazed at how small. Like when I went with you and we kind of drove through some small towns, let's call them, not that far outside of Toronto, but small towns. They're like, oh, this is a small town. And in BC, a lot of the time they're like, oh, that's a gas station and a bunch of mobile homes is the city. And that's the city.
Yeah, it's like the don't sneeze as we drive through the downtown of whatever little area because you might miss it, right?
And then you get outside of Salmon Arm and all the waterfront properties are $5 million each. So it's like, that's 5 hours. That's an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Kelowna, and they're still $5 million.
Yeah, but the people buying that aren't the residents of that area, right?
No,
those are
they're all
wealthy people
homes.
buying secondary, third homes. So it's a little bit different, right?
For sure.
Now, cost of living in Canada has gotten to a point, and Steve, we talked about, like, the reason this podcast even started is because we would talk to each other all the time on the phone, and some of the big hour conversations, like, might as well just record this. We had one of those conversations last night, and I had seen a few things come out. We talked about it on the Leslie episode about, the mayor that couldn't buy in her own town, even though she probably could buy, but just couldn't buy the house she wanted, had a good salary. She was 28 years old. Then, you see things all over social media that blow up because, negativity sells, and the sad story is always going to sell, of people basically crying, saying like, I make $34 an hour. I can't live here anymore. This is crazy expensive. And then Steve has to do his vacation in his own province. He can't even go to Hawaii. Well, Hawaii is a whole different story now.
Oh, dude, it's
terrible.
So we actually found out about that. So Lahaina is one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, hopefully
there.
anyone that's visited there knows people there. Hopefully they're okay.
And we actually got that news while we were on vacation. So, oh man, that was just
terrible.
Like, that's one of those ones. Like, I know I'm heartless and a terrible person according to the YouTube comments, but like, that was one of those ones where, like, I know the place. I've been to the place. When they're showing pictures of the stuff going on, I was like, oh, like this. So my wife and I on our honeymoon found this artist, and he actually paints half the time in the States on the mainland and half the time in what his studio was right down there. And I'm like, I saw the burnt up art gallery like sign in the pictures. I'm just like, oh man. So yeah, way to bring it down, Tom Storey.
I was talking to Dave Mason about it, just to stay on this for a second, because he previous guest on the show, he got married there, and he said the wedding photographer they used, like their social media stories were kind of showing you like what was really happening, and it was like just horrifying. So
it was crazy.
Thoughts go out to all the people. If you know anyone that lived there, or you live there, I hope everyone's doing okay. But the point I was trying to get at with all of this is that Steve couldn't even travel outside Canada to do a road trip because the cost of living is so high. And then with all of that going on and all the other things going on in the news with our government and our prime minister, who, by the way, I don't hate Justin Trudeau. I actually had many points in time where I liked him. I'm swerving the other direction more recently, but I'm not like a super political guy. But when he came out and said, like, Housing is not a federal
primary federal issue.
I just thought like maybe that's a miscalculated. I don't know if that was taken out of another thing or misquoted or something, but tough look. Like housing is the interest rate, the drop in prices have done nothing. It's more expensive now to own than it's ever been before. Like that's just a fact with the interest rates today and the prices at where they're at. We know immigration levels need to go up. The new immigration minister actually came out and said that not only are they not going to pull back, but they might increase because we need people to come and be skilled and help build. We're not going to be able to build if we don't have more people come in, which all this makes sense mathematically, right? But we're growing. We're not building fast enough. I've got a topic we're going to cover today's podcast. I think people will think is really cool in a second, but like from the very, very top, hey guys, it's on you.
Figure it out, suckers. Let's cram in another 1 million people. Figure it out. I don't know, man. I don't know how you. Oh man, this is gonna get me in trouble. I don't know how you guys down there in the GTA keeping these guys in power, but it is that GTA voting pool that seems to go liberal quite a bit.
Yeah, you're right.
And
you're right.
If it's not tone deaf now I am the type of person who I do not always vote for the same party. I am the flip flopper.
Do you flip flop between two parties or three parties? Have you voted for all three or just two?
I have voted for. I've never voted green.
Okay, so I actually forgot about green in that statement. Sorry.
Or block. I've never voted block.
Okay, fine. So at some point in your life, you voted conservative and you voted liberal. That's a fair statement.
I've even voted NDP, not federally. No, I would never vote NDP
federally. I voted both in my lifetime. Conservative and liberal. Yes.
It's just like if it's not evidence that it's not working. And I guess just so many people just keep getting fooled with, we're here to help, we're going to give you money. And they just don't realize government has no money. Every time they hand out more money, it just makes it worse for the people at the bottom, which they say it's making it better for you at the bottom. It's not. And that tone deaf, like we're not worried about housing, we're worried about things like immigration and just ramping it up. It's just like, oh man, that may be your stance. Don't say that publicly, you moron, right? Don't come out and say that when everybody's like, I can't afford my home. And you're going, province. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, what's your gas right now? This is an off topic. What's your gas right now?
It was like $1.70 for it went up. It went up.
Yeah,
it used to be like $1.50 earlier in the summer. It's like $1.70 for but then if you need the 91 in your tank, it's like over $2.
Our regular is $2.05.
Oh wow!
You're crushing. And then I don't know if everybody knows this, on gas, GST gets charged on top of all of the other taxes. So you get taxed on the tax. GST taxes on top of all of the other taxes. So you're not just getting taxed on the cost of the fuel, each tax you're getting anyway. So, and now obviously these carbon taxes that are coming in that they're telling are good for us, right, are crushing people. And it's only going to get worse. And it's why? Because it's good for you. It's not good for you. The better thing to do is, I don't know, take responsibility for yourself, have a little bit more money in your pocket, and hopefully be responsible with it. But we're not going there. I think it's tone deaf. And I think that may have been the nail in the coffin, him standing up there saying, it's not a primary issue for us. So it's the responsibility of the provincial governments. But the provinces have no ability to say, no more people, please. They don't have that ability. So if they did, maybe they could fix their housing issues.
Well, even like locally for us, when our new mayor was introduced, one of the first things she did is she went to the federal government and basically said, we need help. We need money. We need money from the federal government. Toronto needs money. A lot of people come to the GTA. We need your help. And Freeland was basically like, nope, we're not giving you any more. Figure it out on your own.
But isn't JT the guy that says, yeah? I mean, in that same announcement, I watched the whole press conference. In that same press conference, he said, yeah, what's her name? Chow?
Olivia Chow. Yep.
Yeah. So Chow, I'm working with her. We're doing it. He's saying he's doing stuff. I just can't believe he went to a site where they're building 280 rental units. And he's like, look at how good we did.
Like, but that's classic. Like, that's politics. That's because someone sitting at home, Steve, that's not as ingrained in this as we are and the people that watch our content is like, oh, look, the prime minister, they're building more rental units. That's nice. I'm gonna move on with my day, but there's a growing population of Canadians that I think are.
I feel like Marge Simpson.
You're gonna turn into one of her sisters and just smoke all day.
And we're gonna be the one thing I think I hate more than listening to that fella talk about how he's helping Canadians and screwing Canadians at the same time is as soon as Jagmeet comes out and says the same thing, because he's the only guy propping up the whole thing, and he could fix it tomorrow, but he knows that's not good for his party, so that's even worse.
Well, what I will say is that this is not a political podcast. This is a real estate podcast, but it is interesting, when people that have power make statements that impact real estate prices and availability of real estate, and if you can buy real estate and everything in between, because it impacts all of us, right? And I think that's why we have to see through whatever party you like or you vote for or your parents voted for. I know growing up, I had a specific sign in my lawn for every election, and I just thought oh, that's who I vote for, right? That was ingrained in my head, right? And I still have voted for them, and sometimes I haven't, but there has been a chart that is showing right now, which is basically listen, the amount of people coming in versus the amount of new houses being started is the biggest gap we've ever had. And I can understand why people right now in today's market, they're thinking, they're focused on the next maybe 12 to 24 months of what are interest rates going to do. And man, we're not thinking long enough ahead. It's going to be bad if we are not starting to build now, regardless. Yeah, sure. If interest rates gets to 10%, the market will crash. Put me on officially saying that, right? It's not going to be good. But in 10 years, if we're not building and we continue at this level of growth, it's going to be so expensive. Yeah. It's already so expensive. It's going to become way more expensive. And we're going to complain, and we're going to keep complaining. And it's you can look at different alternative. And Steve, at what point does it get to that people that go, I don't like this, but I'm not willing to give up everything. I still want this thing that I want, even though I don't like what it costs me to get it, for them to actually go, fine, I'm going to move to Calgary. Fine, I'll move to Edmonton. Fine, I'll go to wherever. I'll do it. I'll actually change my life because I have no other choice. Or for lifestyle purposes, will Toronto, Vancouver, your market just outside Vancouver, all these big hubs, will they just become, and maybe they already are, what New York City is? And I know that that people compare Toronto to New York. I know, I get it. I get it. But there are people that are willing to sacrifice home ownership just to live in New York and pay crazy rent just for the opportunity to live there, and they're okay with it. And maybe that's just the direction that we're going.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by doormat.ca. Doormat.ca is Ontario's real estate lawyer. It's an online real estate law service that brings you from purchase agreement all the way through your closing. Doormat brings transparency, simplicity, and everything else good from the internet into the real estate transaction and your real estate law industry that typically feels like a black box that continuously just breeds anxiety and stress.
For real estate agents licensed in Ontario, I've got a question for you. Are you tired of hearing about the property closing become official from your clients? That shouldn't be the case. You should be hearing it from the lawyer. If you sign up for Doormat Partners, you will get real-time updates on the progress of your client's transaction, and you will also unlock a $100 discount for the doormat fee for your clients. So if you're looking for insight for your client's property closing, sign up for Doormat's partner program and get real-time updates throughout the process. As a Doormat partner, you'll get emails and texts to keep you up to date on the progress of your clients. If you're buying or selling a property, or you're a real estate agent servicing Ontario, Canada, reach out to Doormat today and let them know you found them from the Tom Storey Show. And now, back to the show.
I think, well, there's people that will always leave, right? All of my ancestors left Europe at one point in time and moved to better pastures.
Because they believed it got bad enough that was their only
It was just
decision?
Better options elsewhere. So,
right.
I mean, I guess it depends on which country you're coming from, at what point, if you're in the Eastern Bloc or whatever. But there's different decisions made at different times to move to greener pastures. And let me tell you, going back to my vacation, I was so happy to get home. I was so happy to get to a town that has proper curbs and proper streets, and I was almost a little bit happy that I couldn't find parking outside my house, right? Like, it was like everything is here. And in that town that cost $200,000 to buy a property, like, it's dirty, gross. There's nothing here. I don't know where the people go. Like, somebody I was with while we were traveling went into the pub one night there and got some dinner, and they were like,
right,
like that is the best place in town, and that's worse than the worst place in town where we are. So that's what you have to give up. So I was so thankful to get back home to my expensive Vancouver suburban home. And I was like, man, this is worth it. This is not only worth it, I would probably pay more, which people are now doing, paying more.
I think it's just called nesting, right? When you just like really love your house because it's like where your family is built and you know, but what are people willing to give up? So like that's, you know, Steve, a house in your neighborhood sells for, let's say, $1.5 million. Okay. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Give or take. Yeah.
Okay. A house where you just were this summer traveling sells for, you said 250. Is that realistic?
I don't know what.
Okay. Let's say it's 500. Let's say it's 500,000. I'm
assuming in the city of, let's say, which was a little way from where we are, 100 Mile House. I'm assuming their different properties are 300,000 to 500,000.
Okay, so there's $1 million delta there, right? So if it's 500 at the top end, so what are you willing to give up to save $1 million on your purchase price? Not you, but I'm just talking out loud here. What is someone listening to this going, don't want to buy in that market because it's too expensive. Yes, I can afford the house out there. I'd have to move my family, have to figure out remote work or something like that. What are you giving up? And I think it's very difficult for people that grew up, were born into these other markets, that they can't afford to buy what they want in, because their whole life they've just been like, this is the way it is. I have my corner store here. You know, would you say like your streets have curbs? that was
totally.
Yeah.
It was great. There's no dirt shoulders.
Okay.
Right. There's no, everywhere we were had gravel driveways. And I was like, ugh. Right. Like just that little thing. I was like, it just feels, I mean, I'm sure we were staying at a place that's kind of like a beautiful spot, but it's basically like a campsite. Right. And my daughters had to use that bathroom for a week. And one of my youngest actually came home, and she walked into the house. She came around the corner. She looked at our powder room on the main floor, and you know exactly where this is, Tom Storey. You know what it looks like. And she opens the door to the powder room, and she goes, I missed you.
Hugs the toilet.
And then she went in and used the toilet because it was clean. Like where we were staying, it was like it was not drinkable water. Right. Like you had to boil it. And when I took my kids, put them in the bath while we were on vacation, you can see the tinge in the water. You know what I mean? So, and this is all stuff that's taken for granted. And sure, you know, is it extreme because, we were in a very small town? Sure. But this is the reality of it. There are reasons why you cannot go to a Canucks game if you live 6.5 hours away. And a lot of the time you can't drive your car for January and February because you're driving the snowmobile into town. Right? Like this is the stuff that you have to think about. And because those, they don't have snow clearing like they might in Calgary or Edmonton, right? These are small towns. And I don't see the upside. Nice place, beautiful place to go for a week in the summer.
You know what I've noticed? This is such a crazy thing to even say, is that near where my cottage property is, which is an hour and a half, 2 hours outside Toronto, the one thing I noticed that made me feel like a little uneasy was at night driving on the roads, there's no streetlights.
Yeah.
It's pitch black. and as someone that grew up in the city, and this might sound so funny to some people listening, depending on where you live, but like, I'm like, whoa, this is like, use my high beams here. Like I can't see anything. This is kind of scary. Like I'm going to drive slower and really, really like focus in here.
When your kids see the stars for the first time,
that's the alternative in the good way is like, hey, look up, check out that, look at that. Like
what's up there? We can literally, where I am at night, we can see like 3 stars. I can see almost nothing.
I can't see anything in Toronto. We see maybe some satellites up there, some planes, but at the cottage, it's full of stars.
Yeah.
It's been great.
The space show with Tom Storey and Steve Karrasch.
I had something that I want to bring up real quick. So we have opinions on this show and bring on people with opinions, but what we don't do, and this is fair, right? Criticism sometimes is we don't have solutions a lot of the times. Well, we think we have solutions, but we don't act on our solutions. We say them out loud, and we know we do this to entertain people. So, you know, that's part of the gig here. But Steve is stepping up. Steve is here to make change. Steve is volunteering at his real estate board.
Again, I'm back. Mm-hmm. I'm back. This is a different thing, but it's so a real estate board here is still relatively small, and I used to be on committees to stay really involved, and that's kind of died off. So I'm back. I got asked to be on the board again. I'm going to go just a committee. I'm not like taking a director position or anything like that, but I think it is something that's lost in our industry. There's not enough connection, and often, don't shoot the messenger, but often the people that do volunteer are people that don't necessarily do a ton of business because they have a lot of time to volunteer. So I thought I'm going to push myself outside of the comfort zone and get back into volunteering. I'm just worried that it might affect my business slightly.
Because it's more time involved.
Time.
Yeah.
It's just time. Yeah. So I'm going to give it a shot again this year, and then we'll see.
You're bringing final offer to BC. Yeah. After the Nathan episode.
Yeah. If I could tomorrow, I would. If I could tomorrow.
I'm really excited to use it.
The poll on our channel that was like, people legitimately think, only 13% of people think that open bidding will drive prices up. That's why it's popular, because only 13% think it's a worse option for prices. So that means, what's the calculation on that? 87% of people think it will have no change or make prices cheaper, which is hilarious.
Well, you know, on the comments though on that podcast episode were generally like, someone actually said that they would be okay to pay more money as long as they knew what the other offer was. So it was interesting to see. Listen, like if you're in a market that's a buyer's market, final offer or whatever program you use isn't going to help you sell your money for your house for more money if there's 15 choices of the same property.
Maybe I can get it in there in my volunteer time.
Yeah. Well,
let's see if that works.
Maybe. Okay. Fall market has commenced, and it was a slow summer. Let's call it what it is. In Toronto, we had 3 months in a row of price points dropping off from what I still believe and will continue to say what I believe the top of the market. I think the peak in my market this year was May. What's going on the West Coast?
So unfortunately, new stats are probably out. Well, no, they're due Monday, so they're not here yet. So this is still reporting over the summer, which is unfortunate, but we saw that massive downturn that we talked about kind of last week. But I do think that it's not getting better from here, price-wise.
Break that down for me. For sellers or buyers?
Well, yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? Why don't buyers want to buy when the prices are coming down? Because they can get a better deal tomorrow, and then prices bottom, and then they screw themselves, which is what happened last November to January. But how does this all impact with people that are having to come to the market, right? Like we have more on the market now than we have ever had in the last, I want to say, almost 10 years.
Active listings.
And not nearly the activity as before. So how much of that was just people were on vacation? I think right now, after we go through, the beginning of return to school and all that stuff, we're going to find out real quick. I think our options are, to be totally frank and honest, I think our options are: one, fine, and two, there's a bunch of people in trouble, right? Like that's where I feel like we're at, just because we're now a year and a half, 2 years into much higher interest rates. There's people that are just running out of options, and they're not willing to move. They're not willing to do what it takes. So I think we won't. I agree with you. So our prices technically are still going up on HPI in all asset classes as of recording this, but average and median went down, as we talked about last week. So I do think that we will see that. However, I do also think that we're seeing the top out of active listings. So the real thing I want to look at is, where do active listings go in September and in October?
Agreed.
Because if they've never, this is an interesting stat that I'll actually pull up right now. So total number of sales went down, obviously.
Yes.
June was the peak. There's only been 2 years on the record that I can find. One was 2019. The other one was 2013. Which year was it? 2013 and 2019 were the only two I could find where July had more sales than June.
Yeah, that's rare. That rarely would happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
Almost every year, June or May is the top of the amount of sales that happened, almost every single year. So this year does look like it's trending. And the net amount of sales is like, it spikes down real quick in the summer.
Always.
And then it usually spikes. And it continues to spike down all the way. And every single year, December is the lowest amount of sales. Every single year. And the question is, how does the interest rates that are so much higher now play into that versus the amount of people being pumped into the country, which we just kind of spoke about?
Were the active listings that your team has right now, is there anyone in that group that's like, I gotta sell because of the rates, or are those just people doing it for other reasons?
Let me refresh my memory. There's nobody that's like, hey, I'm in trouble.
Okay.
Or at least they haven't told us that.
They haven't told you. Okay.
Yeah. You kind of get the pressure like, hey, or you kind of get the impression from some people that like, I'd like to get out from under this.
Right.
But I mean, estates and investment properties, you were kind of mentioning that, like there are a bunch of people going, okay, this investment property's got to go because I'm maybe trying to upsize or do something else. We do have that. We do have people getting rid of vacant properties.
Well, ours aren't vacant, but they're tenanted, but they're owned as an investment property. And we've been selling a lot of those this year. We've been selling off a lot of condo investment properties for our clients because it just doesn't make sense for them anymore, or they want the money out to do something else.
So looking at all of the listings that I have currently, I only get my spidey senses up about one of them that like, they're like, okay, this is getting...
Right.
It's getting a little expensive. Everybody else, I could say firmly, I don't think they have any need to move that is financial. Let's put it that way.
You know what? Right. That made me curious. I'm just going to look at my chart here of our active and what's coming to the market, and just try to go through and see, is there any of these people? So one is just changing markets because of a job. One has to move to a smaller market to take care of their parents. One's moving to Vancouver. One is upsizing because they're getting married and are currently pregnant. A divorce. Upsizers because they got 2 kids. Someone that bought at the peak, thankfully not with us, but we're helping them get out of a situation. We've got that sold conditional right now. Another person that just doesn't like... Yeah, but going through this, you're speaking out loud. Yeah.
The one person that you're saying that like, okay, this person's like, there's too much pressure here. They have an accepted offer on the property that
it's conditionally sold right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, so still not the crazy burden that we would expect to be there for so many people now. I'm personally not seeing it. I do expect that it's out there.
Oh, it's certainly out there. It's certainly out there. Of course it is. They're just not.
Do you know anybody that's scaling back? Personally, think about it in your life. Do you know anybody that's like...
That's like visibly scaling back that I can see? No, but I don't know what's going on at the kitchen table on Sunday nights. with
Yeah.
people figuring out their finances. Because maybe what they're doing, and this is why it's like, yes, your mortgage payment's up $2,000 from what it was before if you have a variable, but perhaps you're not doing all these other things and you're just focusing all of it on paying off your house, even though who knows how much is going to principal these days. You're just doing everything possible. And maybe now it's like, instead of, you know, what it's supposed to be, 30-40% of your income goes towards housing. Now it's like 60-65% of where things are at today. And you can do it. You don't like it. But yeah, I don't know.
What are you going to do
busy all summer.
with your 1 year? You got a 1 year, didn't you?
I am an idiot, Steven.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by the Storey team at Royal LePage Signature in Toronto, Ontario. That's Tom right there. If you are looking to buy or sell any real estate in downtown Toronto, unfortunately, my friend Tom here is probably one of your best options. I know he's sure young and good looking or whatever, but yeah, he is one of the best real estate agents in Toronto. So if you're looking specifically downtown, because that's where these young hipster type kids like to buy and sell their condos, this is the guy that you should probably be in touch with. But Tom, you also do sell other types of properties, correct? Like if I had, I don't know, a single family home in the city of Toronto, would you take my listing?
Yeah, you know, that's probably about.
All right. I don't need you to keep. No. This is my commercial read. If I had a semi-detached, would that work?
We certainly do that. Yes.
All right. And if I wanted to buy a property, you would help me with that.
Certainly.
All right. And then if that was the case, and I wanted to reach out to you, how would I do it?
What you would do, Steven, is you would go into the first link in the description, and there's going to be a link to book a call with me and my team, and you can click it, and you can book a call with us at a time that works for you.
Now, I don't want to ignore the other half of our audience, which is real estate agents. So in the event that you are a real estate agent outside of Toronto, or maybe you are a realtor in Toronto and you just don't want the work, Tom would also love your referrals. So you can reach out to Tom right now by using the link in the description below and booking a call with him at a time that works best for you. Now, Tom, there's one more thing we need to say before this is over.
What's that?
This communication is not intended to cause or induce breach of any agency. No, I screwed that up. Oh, I was so close. This communication is not intended to cause or induce breach of any.
You said induce breach.
Induced. This communication is not intended to cause or induce breach, there we go, of any existing agency agreement.
And now back to the show. Oh man, as the days keep ticking by, I think honestly, it's going to be like, I'm going to do my homework the night before it's due on this one. I'm just going to wait it out until later this year in December, when hopefully things, who knows?
When's it? So it's January, February.
It's late January 2024.
Okay.
I got time.
So then you do your pre-approval end of October.
Yes. Yep.
And then you sit on that pre-approval and cross your fingers.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've already talked with them about it. Yeah. I've already got it all sorted out. It's just like, but then even after all this, still my gut tells me
I'm going to go with variable.
No. I wouldn't take a variable. I can still get a short-ish fixed, probably better than the variable. But even like a 3-year fixed at like over
3 is high.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Recording this 3 is high. 3 is a lot higher than 5.
Yeah, but the variable's not 5%.
You know what you should do, Tom Storey, is go back in time and do a blend and extend, and then look like a genius.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just for anyone that missed that episode, Steve over here has got a 2-point-something% rate.
2 more years.
He didn't mean to, anyways.
But my investment property that I bought in the height of the pandy, 5-year fixed, 1.89. How much better do you think it's going to get, man?
Well, it's
I'm
so
sorry to
easy
make you feel bad publicly,
you know what?
Tom Storey. Should we get on to the next topic?
Yeah, we can, but I will say one thing. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast before. I did something recently with someone that is very, very well known in the Canadian real estate space. famous. Okay. Very famous person.
Mm.
And not something that's like coming out on the channel, but just something that I did. Okay. And I
It sounds like it's going down an OnlyFans route.
That's not what's going on here. We would get 0 people signing up.
Okay. It depends how famous they are.
Fair enough. And they told me, because I was joking with them when I was like, and see, I'm using them. I'm not saying female, male. I'm not going to lead you any direction here. They told me, because I was like, how are things going on? What's going on? Because I know that they heavily invest as well. And they're like, well, I have 8 variable rates. I'm like, you are a very well-known person. That like, so what I'm trying to get at here to get myself out of this little getting made fun of by Steve is that people that have way more experience than me, that have been doing this way longer, that have made fortunes owning real estate, they took variable as well. A lot of people did. Oh, so many of our listeners took variable. And yes, we all right now look like a little bit of idiots. We do. It's clear. But I felt like, like a pretty smart, savvy real estate person for the 8 years prior to this. And it worked really well. So, you know what I actually think is maybe the best quote of all this is that the uncertainty of today's real estate market is going to separate the amateurs from the professionals. Right? The bumpy waves are going to wash out the amateurs.
I would say the cost is going to...
Yeah, the waves are the cost. That's what I mean. Like it's going to wash the amateurs out because they got in, maybe they jumped on a train they didn't fully understand, and it started going a little too fast. They got scared and they jumped off. But the pros are like, there's some bumpy waters here, but we're thinking long term. And as long as you can afford it, you're going to hold.
Of course.
Most people are going to hold. And it's no different than, the crypto market, the anything market. It's going to separate the stock market. Same thing. It's going to separate the people that thought they knew what they were doing because they took an online course once versus the people that have actual decades of knowledge on this and have done it before and have seen the good and seen the bad. And so I'm okay to hang tight here.
I have somebody I'm trying to get on the show that he's not super comfortable talking publicly. I'm going to see if I can warm him up. But we're talking like investing, real estate, developing, everything since like the late 70s. And we had a conversation, let's call it August, September last year. And he's like, this is nothing like 1981, 82. I wish I could get him to come on. He's just like, in 1981, 82, I did whatever I could to get out from anything I owned at whatever cost, no matter how big the hit I could take. That was his thing. He's like, this feels nothing like that. He's like, I can't. At this point in time, how do you still have people looking to develop land? And they do. They are. They're out there. And he's like, back then, I was giving away a lot with, if you bought one lot, here's the second one free.
Like, please take it. Yeah.
Please take it off my hands. I can't. So he's like, I just don't feel any of that. And I don't know what he's at right now, but he said he got rid of every subdivision he had back then. And that's what he does. He's generally a guy that generally will subdivide, but he's been in real estate sales, owned real estate companies, that sort of thing. And he's just like, so that was a year ago now we had that call. And since then, the market's probably right back to about those prices. Right. So he's like, it's just not quite, there's no severe panic, right? This isn't Lehman Brothers shutting down.
No.
Yet, Tom Storey, until next week when it happens.
There's always going to be a yet, no matter how good or bad or whatever.
There's always going to be a yet.
Well, that's life.
You know what? Here's what I want to know. Like, I just got to feel, when you said how dumb you are to take a variable, I just got to feel how all the troll commenters got to feel last November. So I'm just so happy. Now I know why they do it. Because even if you troll for 10 years straight, if you're right once, it's so good. It's like playing golf. Right? That one good drive. I know I just shot 120, but that one I had on 7,
Yeah, it makes you feel real good.
Man, that made me feel good.
You just want to get that feeling again. So
keep locking in and feeling good once every 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, I just don't know if locking into a 5-year fix right now is the right decision for me personally. For me, okay. I don't want to be tied down, Steve. You know, I need free flowing in my life.
Yeah, you and your whole generation.
Okay, now one thing that I thought a lot about, and I've been thinking about putting out a full, really long video on this, but I think there's a better topic for the podcast is, okay, we talked about amateurs versus the pros and people not thinking long-term, and we're only focused on the next 2 years and everything with interest rates. But with the immigration numbers, with the development that is not happening at the level that we need, where are we headed here? What's it going to be like in the future? If nothing significantly changes and we follow the path we're on, yeah, sure, rates will come down to 3.5%, 4% at some point in time in the next little while, in the next few years, who knows when. But in 10 years from now, let's play a fun little game and let's guess what it will cost to buy in our markets. Because I can tell you, 10 years ago from today, like 10 years in the past, I think the average sale price in Toronto was like $500,000. Mm-hmm. Now it's 1.2 million.
Let's do this in reverse.
Okay.
I will tell you my price today.
Yep.
And I'm now going on the Fraser Valley Board's website, and I'm going to pull up the stats package from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I can tell you just pretty straightforward. 10 years ago from right now in the Toronto market, the average sale price was $522,000. And the average price today is it's just under 1.2. So we've doubled.
Of course you've doubled.
It's been a crazy 10 years though.
It's been, okay, so what are we? We're 2013, so let's go back July of 2013. Okay, you want to go Surrey or Fraser Valley? Let's go Surrey combined. The average price in Surrey combined was $593,000. And coincidentally, that is the month that I bought my home.
Okay.
I might have done it in June. No, I did it in July.
Okay, so just under 600,000 a decade ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And today, even after, and I'm going to use average price, which went down $100,000 just last month. And if I'm smart enough to find it, the average price in Surrey detached is 1.712.
My God, you guys went on a run.
And that just went down almost exactly $100,000 last month.
Are you saying that in the last 10 years, Surrey has not just outperformed, but significantly outperformed the center of the universe? Is that what I just heard?
Yeah. Surrey's the best place on the planet. Don't you know about it?
You got curbs on all the sides of your streets.
We do have curbs everywhere. There's no curbs. Get out of here. If you got no curbs, I was going to swear, but never mind.
Okay, so the
what I call Frankfurt this.
No, I think Daryl's swearing is what makes their show what it is. I think it's wonderful.
I agree, and I'm trying not to go there. I do swear as much as it's not on here.
I don't swear that much on this. It pops up.
1.7. So 1.7 from 600.
My goodness.
1.7. So I'm going to say that probably, because I bought my house for almost exactly 7, so I bought it $100,000 over, and I'm going to say my house is probably around 1.8 right now. So I'm going to say that's bang on. I'm going to say that's absolutely bang on.
So the last 10 years, though, on a historical going back 40, 50 years, we've been ripping along. Interest rates have been relatively low. It's been a good decade. It's been a good decade for real estate home ownership. That is not necessarily what it's always going to do moving forward. So I actually had 3 different scenarios I wanted to play out for both of our markets. And we'll have to do some kind of math on the fly here, which neither of us will be good at.
No,
but I'm going to try to just like figure it out.
Let me make a calculator. Okay.
Okay. So if let's say in the next 10 years, the market doubles again. So let's say that's choice number one. I don't personally think that's going to happen, but let's say the next 10 years are the same as the last 10 years, right? Based on all the things that we know about Canada and the real estate market. That would put Toronto at 2.4 average price in 10 years from now. And I know me saying that seems absolutely...
Detached or overall again?
That's overall.
Right.
But again, like right now, the average price is 1.2, but you can buy a condo for 500,000. So it's not always average, but just for the sake of this. So in 10 years from today, there is a chance if the next 10 years or the last 10 years, the prices are $2.4 million. That sounds insane to say. Also, if I made a podcast 10 years ago and told you when there was 500,000, the average price would be $1.2 million, you would also say that it was insane. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say that's number one. So that's Toronto. Steve, your market, if the next 10 years is the same as the last 10 years, where do you guys land?
The next 10, the same 10. We just did that. That was
no.
How many times?
No.
Hang on. No.
The next 10 for you.
I don't understand.
It's going to cost like $3.5 million.
But if I go 1.7 divided by, what did we say? 600?
Yeah.
That's 2.83 times 1.7 again.
Yeah.
No way.
There's no way. That's not possible.
$4,816,000.
I don't think your math is right. Okay. That is option number one.
It went up more than 2.5 times. It went up almost 3 times. My math is correct.
I just don't think I can comprehend if that was even possible.
But here is the reality of my market. Now, this is my market specific. This is the Fraser Valley. They've been tracking average price detached since 1979.
Oh, were you giving me detached price?
Sorry, that's detached.
Okay.
Sorry. I was looking at detached.
My numbers were Toronto as an entire market. Steve's numbers were just detached. That's the difference here. Okay.
I'll do that again in a second because this is super fun to think about. We are not suggesting, trollers, that every property in the Fraser Valley is going to be $4.8 million in 10 years.
That's actually exactly what Steve said, is what he said.
But only if history repeats itself. What I do want to point out is, and you can look this up at Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. Well, it's fvreb.bc.ca. You can actually look at the chart yourself. There is no point on that chart that the house prices don't double in 13 years.
How far back does that chart go?
1979. So even after 1981, the crash, of which was basically it got wiped out, right? So it went from $70,000 to like 140 and then back down to like $74,000 or something. Even that 140, 13 years later, the prices doubled from the peak of the peak of the peak. So if you could hold on for 13 years, and they actually met back up only 8 years later. So 8 years to recover from the top to the top of the top. So there's a very good chance that even if we stink it up now, we're going to get back within 8 years to peak pricing, right, of 2022. So 2030, I would suggest it's not going to be uncommon for the average property in my area to be $2 million again. That's just what's gone on. Like, that's just repeating itself. Now, let me do what you told me, which is all asset classes.
And when you're doing that, I'm going to talk through what I think is realistic thing that could happen. Number two, we're going to go both extreme. So we just went extreme on the growth. Let's go extreme on if the market tanks here. So in Toronto in 1989, the average sale price was $273,000. Okay. 2 years before that, it was $189,000. Crazy growth. Just went absolutely nuts. Everything changed, crashed in 1989, going into the 90s. We did not get back to $273,000 until 2002. More than a decade. From 1989 was the peak, $273,000. It took until 2002 to get past that to $275,000 average price. We had many, many years of markets doing not much or dropping from the peak and hovering and going from 273 to 255 to 234 to 214 to 206, like dropped significantly for about 5 or 6 years and then slowly started working their way back up. So if we play, that's going to happen, right? Let's play the bear really, really like crash is coming. It's all happening, right? For the next 10 to 12 years, we'll start at 1.2 million and we'll get down to like percentage wise the same on that one. We'll get us down to like 750, right? It would really change. And then that would take 5 years to drop to there. And then it would slowly start moving up again. And it would take about a decade, slightly longer actually, to get back to 1.2. So there's your market crash scenario. If the same thing happened that we've seen in history, which again, probably won't, but those are the extremes. If you guys had another 1983, is it 83?
81, 82. Yeah.
81, 82. Would something similar play out?
I mean, didn't we just?
Well, obviously not. Not that bad.
Didn't we just? Because, I mean, our detached house prices in the Fraser Valley dropped 35% last year.
Where were they at the peak? If you're telling me they're 1.7 now, where were they at the peak?
This is all Fraser. So I got Fraser Valley board open right now. Hang on. So I just did your all asset classes across the entire Fraser Valley real estate board.
Okay.
Right now, $1 million, basically $1.05 million, a little bit less than that.
Okay,
And
so
then,
where did it start?
10 years ago?
Yeah.
10 years ago exactly was 445. So if it doubles again, if it does the same thing as now, in 10 years from now, the average price across all asset classes across the entire Fraser Valley will be $2.455 million.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I said for Toronto. So our numbers are almost identical.
Almost identical.
So so far option 1 is the average sale price is $2.4 million. Option 2 is in 10 years, it just gets back to where it is today because we've had a massive crash. Let's go through maybe the more realistic option. And this is going to be hard to do the math on the fly here. But what do you think? Like the next 10 years with everything going on with the rates, with inflation, with building, with immigration, all the different variables. I still think the next 10 years, this is my own guess, right? Nobody knows what the hell is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think you could probably average out in my market in Toronto 4.5%, 5% a year.
Probably.
Appreciation.
Probably. I think so, because I just don't think it's going to, I mean, you're just funneling so many people in. Sorry, I'm not close enough. You're just funneling so many people in. I think it's going to counteract interest rates. And until there's some sort of big oh no moment, I mean,
well, the oh no moment would give us scenario number 2, likely. Interest rates at 10%, something falls off with immigration, and our employment levels tank. That's how you get scenario number 2, right?
But so employment's something interesting right now that I've been looking at. So TELUS just laid off 6,000 people, right? So 4,000 were apparently in Canada. Another 2,000 sounds like maybe, I don't know, Filipino call center or something like that, right? Okay. So they lay off all those people. But still, the jobs, and I'm talking jobs where you have to go to it, maybe put on some steel-toed boots and do something like
physical labor jobs.
BC ferry workers. I mean, is that physical labor? If you're taking tickets at a ticket booth and telling cars where to go, is that physical labor? I don't view it as physical labor. I view it as using your body to do something.
Okay, a non-office job.
Yeah. Okay. Like you.
Sure, I get what you're saying.
Empty. These are still empty. All the government positions are still empty, right? My brother works.
You mean like they're looking to hire?
Yeah. They're looking to hire like crazy. My brother works at Canada Post, and it's just like they're hiring people off the streets to be like not even the bottom of the rung. They're like,
are you sure that's what they're doing, Steve? Are they hiring people?
Streets? Like a little bit of hyperbole here, Tom. Yeah. They're not taking down tents and putting those people in Canada Post uniforms. I'm just saying, like they're getting whoever they can, and they can't get people. And I just view like there's a bunch of white collar work that's probably going to go away. There's a bunch of tech work that's probably going to go away. Personally, you want controversial take right now? I think the AI thing is the next bubble. I think there's an AI bubble happening right now that's going to be the same as the dot-com bubble, because all of these companies right now, Facebook, Google, everybody, when did their stock start going up again? Their stock went up because AI came out and everybody's like, this is the next big thing. This is it. And yeah, it's cool, but it's not there yet. And we don't even know why we're using it or what it's going to become. I think all of these people are tossing all this money in, and I don't know that it's going to stay there. I don't think AI is going to be as big of a deal yet as everybody wants to be.
I think you're wrong. I think it's going to be huge. Not saying there won't be a bubble. Not saying there won't be a bubble involved.
You want to buy pets.com, Tom Storey? It's only worth $10 gazillion, just the name.
I really hope at some documentary in 40 years from now, they clip this and it's going to be the same as like those news people being like, what is the internet? What is this at symbol? And they're like,
computers talking to each other over telephone lines.
I don't disagree. I think there's going to be a bubble involved with it, but I do think it is. It's here. It's here to stay.
Yeah. For sure. I'm not saying it's not here to stay. All of it's been here to stay. QR codes are here to stay. But for the first 10 years we had QR codes, it was like, what the hell am I doing with this thing?
True.
So it took a use for them to come out and go, okay, this makes sense. I've got a use for this now. People writing newspaper articles with AI because that's their side gig and they want to try and get 10 clicks on something. I don't think the use for AI, right? Gathering information quickly is the use for AI, probably.
Steve, I'm curious, how much do you tip at self-checkout machines?
Oh, dude. Don't get me started. I went through, speaking of another beautiful, we could be here for hours if we do this.
I didn't even get to cover one of the topics. We're going to have to say
Okay, no, just let me tell my story first. Yeah. I'm going to say, personally, I went through Hope, BC, which is about an hour and a half away from home. So that was where we stopped for lunch. Name.
Yeah.
This time, not A&W. A&W is, by the way, the most popular restaurant in BC because they're in every small town.
I think A&W is one of the best fast food spots. Yeah, just to be clear.
You're about to get your mind blown here. We stopped at Dairy Queen.
Oh, okay.
And we did not have ice cream, and I had a burger. Not only were their burgers affordable, they were delicious. They were fantastic. And the best part, Tom Storey, I hope this doesn't get them in trouble. I got a plastic straw. And I was stoked. I only realized I got the plastic straw after she tried to get me to tip, and I pressed hard no in the drive-through. They asked for a tip in the drive-through of Dairy Queen. Best burger. If I would have known how good the burger was, and if I would have known they were giving me a plastic straw first, I would have tipped them. However, I did not know those two things, so I apologize. I owe $3 or $4 to the wonderful lady, and she was actually really good. I probably should have tipped her.
The plastic straw thing makes drinks taste worse. It's just a fact. And I don't disagree with
the paper straw thing or a plastic straw thing.
I'm sorry, the paper straw. Sorry. Paper straw makes a drink taste bad. It just is what it is. And the concept behind it makes sense. But for the most part, the drink you're drinking out of is a plastic cup, and it's so ridiculous. Make it all like the actual cup is plastic, but the straw is not. It makes no sense. Anyways,
yeah, it's absolutely stupid. They found
maybe we're moving
off his nose, and now we are everybody. No more plastic straws. You're probably too young for this, Tom. Oh, this is going to go long today, man. You're probably too young for this. But back in my day, we got away from paper bags at the grocery store because they were bad for the environment. And then we went to plastic bags, and now they're bad for the environment. And we're back to paper bags, and you got to pay for them now, and all this crap going on, which is exactly what's going to happen with open bidding.
I
what?
knew you were.
Did I just say it? Did I just go there?
I knew you were going there. I wonder what it's going to be. Maybe like, I don't know, 30 years from now, when they're looking back at like, maybe it's something doctors said, maybe it's something just we all did and just thought it was normal. That, like, you know, now when you look back at advertisements for like cigarettes or what doctors were saying, or like there's these like
I know which one that's going to be, but
you see this. Yeah. Maybe we'll keep that. or like this thing where it was like for apartments in New York and you put it in the window like a air conditioner unit, and it was to put your baby outside. And they hung in these cages so that the baby could get fresh air. Like if you did that today.
In my lowrider days on the old like 50s cars, when guys would have them, what they did is they had a little bucket, basically a tube that sat outside the window, and it bolted on the outside. And that's what you do. You toss a bunch of ice in it, and then it would blow the air through, and it would blow the air onto you, and the water would drip outside of the car. It was perfect.
Yeah. I wonder what the next thing is going to be. It'll be interesting. These catch-up episodes are always fun. So here's what we've learned today. Steve is going to save the real estate industry in BC. He's volunteering his time. I think this is great. We've also learned that housing is not a primary federal responsibility. Good to know. Thanks for that. We've learned that in 10 years from now, it's either going to cost $2.4 million to buy a property in Toronto or Surrey, or it's going to cost exactly what it costs today because the market's going to crash and slowly come back, or you're going to see more reasonable growth, which we didn't even get to, but that number is probably going to be higher than it is today. One of those in some capacity will kind of be right. Who knows which one it's going to be? And we've learned that Steve likes
one more thing.
Well, I did an interview on my main channel that you can go back to with Calvin, and he's an Edmonton real estate agent that specifically focuses on investments. And video was very, very well received. It was like a mini podcast. It was like a 35-minute conversation. How they're landlord friendly. There's no closing costs. You can actually cash flow. And at the end of it, I was like, personally, I like investing in markets I understand and I know and that I can. But in the comments, people are like, wow, this opened my eyes up to potentially, I'd never thought about this before. Maybe there's an opportunity. But again, we were very clear, like this is a long-term cash flow market. This is not an appreciation market. It lives and dies by the oil. Like, let's be very clear about that. And I think I talked to Steve about it, and Steve just, all he does is poo-poo on Edmonton. But I thought if you haven't seen that yet, go back to my channel. It's called like Toronto Real Estate Doesn't Cash Flow, This Market Does. That's the title. I was proud of that title, by the way.
I think it's a great title.
Go watch that. I think you guys will find it interesting.
My opinion, and how many friends do we have from Edmonton? And I got a lot of, my wife's family's from Edmonton. Fantastic. Never living there in a gazillion years. I'm moving out of country before you make me move to Edmonton.
But would you invest there? I'm not talking about living. Would you invest there?
No, I looked at it. Actually, with a friend of ours, I looked at it. And then I was talking to somebody else I know who owns there. And he is like, your quality of tenant is so much lower than in a big city. He's just like, it's just hard because they'll move out. They'll be transient more. It was just really, really hard. So I wouldn't touch it for that reason. I think it's great that you can cash. Like if I was living in Edmonton, I'd probably buy up half the place and cash flow on everything because it does. It all cash flows. You could still buy a really nice condo for $200,000. But is it for me? No, not at all.
But it might be for somebody listening. So make sure to go check out that on my main channel. Steve,
the last thing we have learned is, or I learned, I don't know if Tom agrees with me, DQ burger better than a team burger.
I was never a DQ guy. I was a McDonald's and a Harvey's guy growing up.
Either was I, and we ended up going for ice cream cones. Kids wanted ice cream cones one day, so we went there, and I was like, I didn't have lunch. I want a burger, and they won me back. Did you
say, listen, I can buy you this burger, or I can show you
how to make a cheeseburger?
Only our regular listeners will know that joke at all, but
that was a dad's treat. But it was 2 double cheeseburgers, and not McDonald's little double cheeseburgers, but good ones for 2 doubles for $9. And I was like, that's pretty good by today's standards.
I love this episode. Let us know in the comments if you've made it this far. What is your favorite fast food restaurant? I think that would just be fun if we see in the comments
let me know if you're a young aspiring realtor in Surrey.
Oh, I also forgot to bring that up. Sorry, Steve. If you're listening to this in the car, there's a higher chance you're in the real estate industry. That's what our numbers tell us.
Yeah. Good to
if you're listening to this and you are in Steve's market, and you want to be mentored by a guy that okay, I'm going to say something nice for a sec. No, runs a really good team, is really good at what he does, and I think could be a huge help to someone starting off their career really, but you got to be able to put the work in. And just like real estate investing, this is not a 1 year in, like, you got to be committed. Yeah. Steve is hiring right now. And how do they reach out to you about that?
Oh, you can book a call with me right now down below in the description. Yeah.
What if they're in their car though? Just go to your website. Anyway,
do not pick up your phone while you're in your car. Yeah, krproperties.ca. Reach out to me any which way. Instagram, I check every week or so. However you can do it, because yeah, I am at the mindset, and I know you do this really well in your team, and I know that Toronto agents maybe have an advantage with the leasing thing, but like I listened to when Joe Rogan opened up his club, he was always like, the best clubs always bring new people up. So like, you need more comedians in the world. You can't just have sold out shows with the top comedians in the world. You have to have open mics. So he does 2 open mics at his club, right? And it's like, okay, I need to find someone to mentor, to bring up, because I think if I do that, and I've done that, like I've got great agents on my team that do that, but now we're looking for that bottom entry level person again to kind of keep filling,
bring them through the system,
bottom, yeah. Right? Bring them up through the system. So that's the goal. But man, the last time I did this, there are a lot of people that want to work 20 hours a week in real estate, and that is a third of a work week in real estate.
Yeah, that's not the industry for you if that's your mindset. Nope. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for watching this episode. We appreciate you as always. We have a really big episode coming out next week for the real estate industry, which we're very proud that we got this interview, and we're excited to share it with all of you. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope your summer was great to you. I hope you're ready for the fall. And thanks for listening. Have an amazing day, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Oh.